we'll go ahead and transition over to the Q&A part of our time this morning. So you guys showed up. That means you have stuff you want to learn, things you want to develop and implement in your business. So that's what we're here for. What questions are on your mind? There's a lot of things that can be really valuable to get feedback from other coaches, other clients around the country doing the same or similar things to you. So what questions have been working their way up this week or top of mind for you, things you want some feedback on? And unmute or put it in the chat. No question is silly.
I have a question for, I'm probably going to say your name really wrong. Dalen Hall.
You said the second was correct.
Okay. How do you do flat rate pricing, and how do you deal with your sales tax and stuff like that with flat rate pricing?
You kind of integrate it all. It's a long process. Typically you can hire somebody. I think there's 3 or 4 big outfits that will build one for you, and they audit your supply house. They do like checks in your area as far as they call other plumbing companies and get pricing. They do all the footwork, but you can spend $10,000 on a price book. And then it's a monthly thing where every month they're auditing it to keep it with the market, with prices going up as much as they are. But we've been able to price them. To long story short, you go in, and what industry are you in?
HVAC.
Okay, so with that, I think y'all's would be pretty similar to plumbing as far as a lot of times, but in your world too, I've got one of my best friends owns an HVAC service company. Y'all can chase gremlins a lot more than I can as far as time on job, trying to figure out what's going on. I price a job, say a toilet repair, a fill valve flapper, supply line. I price that what it would take the slowest plumber to do. I can't price it the way that I do it just because I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'm very efficient. What it would take a green plumber to do. So you put your time, and I do it. I mark up materials. I put my time on there. I put my tax in it, and then I mark it up again. And that margin is something that be relative to you. You would play with that, whatever worked for your business. But I can't remember the form that I found when I first started business. There's a math equation to equate your hour, what you need your hourly labor rate to be to run your business. I was able to find that out, and I boosted it with overhead that I didn't have yet. Because starting out cheap and then in a year raising your prices looks really bad to the customers that you work for. You go in and you fix a toilet for them. You go in a year later to fix another toilet in their house, and it's $125 more. And they're like, well, this is weird. What did you do? You can't blame the economy for that much of an increase. So I priced it on the front side as we were bigger than we were. As I've studied into this, that's the way to go, is to go ahead and price yourself in a manner with the big guys, because you're as good as them. You just don't have the scale that they have most of the time. But labor, materials, markup, go ahead and mark up labor or materials, get your labor together, what it's going to take the slowest guy to do that job, and then mark it up again. And that's been able to keep us very relative with the industry standard in our area amongst the big guys. I don't want to be priced with these chucks in a truck. They cut my throat every day, and that's fine because I go back and fix their stuff every day.
Yeah. So are you tax exempt from first, like when you go to your supply houses and stuff?
No, we have some customers that we are. Churches, we service a few major churches in the area. Anything for them is tax exempt. You get into sewer, there's a loophole with fittings and piping and sewage pumps that are exempt. But for the most part, we have to pay local taxes as far as whatever the city's rate is, 8 to 10%.
Okay. That's what we're trying to figure out is we're not flat rate yet. We wanted to be, but then our accountant, because we're tax exempt or sales tax exempt, so like when we go to our supply houses, we don't pay taxes from them. They said that it was too difficult to do flat rate and then calculate the sales tax and what we were going to have to pay and figure all that out. So we were just trying to find a different way.
I wouldn't see how that would be correlative because you charge tax anyway. You put your tax in there anyway because you're, and not to sound shady at all, but your customer doesn't know that you're tax exempt. They don't need to know that. That's a benefit for your business
Right.
because they pay tax when they go to the gas station and buy a Coke. That's just the norm. And how are you tax exempt? How did y'all?
We are not tax exempt. We did a sales tax exempt form. So like we go ahead to our suppliers and they don't charge us any tax. But then at every month we have to send money to whichever county we did work in, and it's based off of their rate. And that's how we do it.
Okay. I think we can do that here. The majority don't do that just because it's another step in the back side of the office that we pay it on the front side, I guess, rather than the back side.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think something that's key in what Dalen said as well, though, is, and this is true service and remodeling side, you price your job based on your least efficient crew, not knowing who exactly is going to be on the job. Or you budget your timeline based on that so that you can underpromise and overdeliver when you come in and get it done earlier, or if you're able to get it done at a lesser price. You have to budget based on that. And so I would say maybe two, if I'm understanding the situation right, and tax law is different in every single state, so there's that. But pricing based on whichever county that you do it to, you have to pay sales tax on all the work you do. It's just variant depending on which one it is.
Right.
But if you charge a flat rate, that's the whole thing about flat rate. We charge one price so you can have it based on the tax rate that's needed for the most expensive county. Because alternatively, you could make it a variable price based on their county and have an extra location kind of fee that you charge. But that's going to be a lot more, one, complicated, two, more difficult to communicate and sell with people. You'll run into more snags that way. But flat rate pricing and pricing in general, even for general contractors, pricing based on and putting your timeline budget based on your least efficient crew so that you can underpromise and overdeliver.
And another thing that I've realized over time is I would go in, and if I got any kickback on pricing, I would immediately my brain would start figuring out how we could take money off of it to make it better. For them to make it fit their whatever they wanted to spend on it. And I've done away with that and taught my guys to do away with that, where we've done it differently, where we'll take away value rather than price off the job. With that, take parts off more so than take money off for the same services. Because if you do that, you're showing them that you have fluff in your price that's negotiable. Flat rate is something that you have to stick with as far as when you go in there, this is the price for this certain task. Okay, that's too high for me. I can afford this. Okay, well, in your world, we can take away the 3-inch filter and go with a standard filter. We can take the UV off of it. We can take off things to fit your budget to do what you need us to do, but this is the flat rate for the system replacement. We like to do all these things to give you the best product, and we put that in our price, but we can take off some of these things rather than saying, oh, well, we can do it for $1,000 less for the same job. Well, that is telling the customer at that point, hey, they have $1,000 fluffed on this. They're taking people.
Or the contrary, leaving your numbers ugly or calculated values. Exactly. We would agree.
And add-on is something that is huge as well. As when you do your price book, in our world, we have a lot of add-ons as far as we can go out to a job and they have a toilet that needs repair, but they also have a sink that's draining slow. We have add-on prices to run the cable on that. So while we're there, we can give them a little bit of a break than if we came back to do that sink unstop. You don't pay the full cost of an initial service call to unstop a sink if we're already there. So there's add-ons for everything. You go to a house and they need vacuum pulled on the lines and new refrigerant put in, and at the same time their thermostat's been messing up, have an add-on price for that thermostat and show them in the field, hey, you can save this if we do this digital thermostat while we're here. You can save $75, and they love that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Similarly with that, we talk about this for both main categories, but being able to offer options at the point of sale. It's really easy to do that with flat rate pricing, just like you're saying, Dalen. You're not taking off arbitrary numbers, but you're taking off certain services. If you're able to say through a home safety inspection list or just an inspection checklist, as an example, you're checking everything that could be done and offering it without forcing obligation to have somebody buy all of it. You're just saying, hey, you want us to get everything done and get your system as a whole up to best condition that it can be in one fell swoop while we're here. This is what the price would be for all that together. We can give you a break because we're doing a bulk. Easier to price that when you're doing flat rate pricing, but then, yeah, presenting those options. Rod, I saw that you put something in the chat. I want to get to you, but Richard, you've had your hand up for a little bit, so I'll let you chime in here, Mr. Bayless.
Yeah, hey there. So I'm in the HVAC industry as well, and I don't know if this answers Haley's question. It's Haley, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, if you do flat rate pricing, and I mean, depending on what ERM software you use, you're gonna have to do the work on the back end. It's like a lot of stuff in the HVAC world is, I don't say cookie cutter. I'm just saying like capacitors, contactors, compressor changeouts, leak check and repairs, and obviously like system replacement. So once you find your numbers on there, you just charge labor and materials, and that's how you get away from when you go to the parts house, you're paying tax there, and then you don't have to itemize it, because if you itemize it on your bill, then you have to pay more taxes on top of that. Instead, if you just do time and material, labor material, this is our package, or this is our total deal to do this job, then you're not having to pay that. I mean, at least out here in Sacramento is 8.75% tax rate, you know. So then you're getting taxed at the parts house, and then if you itemize it on your bill, you have to do more taxes on there. And it makes it cleaner if you just do flat rate. You don't have to worry about that at the end of the year when you're doing your taxes. Obviously, there are some customers that, hey, can you give us an itemized bill? You know, and those are the ones that you might have to do that for, or you can just be like, hey, $1,000, it's $99 to do it, and $1 for this, or whatever. You know, however you want to do that. But I think that's pretty what we come up with. But obviously, each job is different. Manufacturers, whether a good mix compressor is probably going to be a lot cheaper than an American Standard train compressor. So you just got to know your numbers. And like he said, always bill it for the slow. Finish out our green guy. May take a season tournament. May take him 5 hours start to finish. He knows what he needs to bring and what goes back in the truck. So, you know, it's efficient on that part. And, you know, that's all I got.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Richard. Dalen, it looks like you've already kind of answered, but just so that everybody can hear it as well. Rob was talking about looking into flat rate pricing from being on a time and materials to get to a more stable profit margin, which, side note, yep, we agree. Thumbs up from RGC side. Flat rate tools help you do that. Even with a flat rate price book, by the way, you're still going to need to evaluate it. Even if you created your own flat rate price book from your own estimates, you're still going to need to evaluate that. We'd say probably twice a year just to make sure you're on target. Rod says he's talked to Travis a little bit about it, but wanted to know what people do with pay when they're doing flat rate as well. Is it more piecework type of pay, or how it works? And Dalen, I know you responded in the chat, but would you mind sharing what you said a little bit?
So my guys are still paid hourly, but I pay as I charge with the big guys. I pay with the big guys as well. So I've got a 2-year journeyman that's a killer. He's hungry, and he makes $28.50 an hour. I know that may sound weak in some industries. But in Alabama, that is good for a 2-year. And then I've got a 5-year and he makes 32. We don't have a top out. And I'm transparent with that this is all what you make is all a math equation. If you're making us more money, you're going to make more money consistently throughout growth. But I've read on this performance pay thing where you're able to integrate that on top of hourly, and that gives them incentive to do more, to be more efficient. So that's something once we get our systems in place with Redmond, where I'm able to sit back and look at these things and get these things integrated that we'll add on just to make them more efficient. We can do more calls. They get there on time. Let's just do little bitty things along the way that add value, because I've noticed at this point in home service industries, there's a standard on what guys are making in your town, and they can go right down the road and make the same as they're making with you. So you can't really go to somebody and say, hey, I'll give you more money, because you're already paying top of the standard. So you got to add value, just like what we do in the field. Add comfort, add perks, add things that the next guy doesn't have. And with flat rate, they do see it can be difficult. I can see where your question's coming from, because the guys see these numbers, and if they're able to go in there and smoke it and knock it out, they're like, wow, I just made my boss this in an hour. With the next guy 2.5 hours. Well, that's has to be reciprocated to them somehow. So right now we're only 2.5 years in. So right now it's hourly, and then I'll throw them, if we have a good week, all of our weeks are good, but if we have one where it's just smoking, I'll Venmo them $500. Both of my guys, I'll throw them some money, because on the grand scheme of things for us, that's not a whole lot going on, but it means the world to them. And doing that is retention, because to the guys here on home service side of things, employee retention is sorry in our world. A guy will go down the road for $1.
Yeah. So the part of that question was, whenever it's just say a guy goes out there and does I quoted or flat rate pricing, and like you were saying about the toilet fill valve, just say I do it for an hour, 2 hours. I mean, shouldn't take more than 30 minutes in my opinion. But say I do an hour and it takes you guy 2 hours. How am I flat rate? And I know you said do it for the slowest plumber, but even a green guy shouldn't take him that long.
No, if you go out there and it takes 2 hours, we had something else go wrong, and then we go to our add-on pages. We go to what else went wrong here to cause this to happen. Because like you said, I'll go change a fill valve flapper and supply line out. I'm talking to the customer and getting in my truck in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If it takes 2 hours, we had a hiccup there, and that hiccup is relative of expense. So you have to go at that point when you hit your guys in the field. It's one of two things: he had a hiccup or he's an idiot.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. If it's one guy always, that's a pattern. You know, but a lot of times, I see owners do this, I see employees do this. They run into something, they know it's easy to solve, so they just solve it, and it might take an extra 15, 20 minutes, but they take care of it. We can't do that. We have to go back to the customer. We have to communicate what the new addition is. We have to get agreement. And so some of it is really training your techs to hold by that change order policy. If they run into something unforeseen, we have to communicate that to the owner: new price, new timeline. But you're totally right. If it's the same guy who's just dragging his feet every single time, it might be that he's just not the right fit. We need to address it, and if it doesn't get fixed, we got to replace him.
And to the question there, Rod, about how do you pay or compensate with a flat rate pricing model, you could do hourly, but honestly, what we recommend is not that. Only if you have like helpers or apprentices, right? They would stay on hourly. But if you have a guy that is selling and performing the work on a job, moving them towards commission or merit-based pay, or as you said, kind of piece rate pay, would be the move. Whenever
Yeah.
you have a flat rate price, you can budget specifically what you're paying your guy out of that as a set dollar amount if you're doing piece rate pay. But more preferentially, you could do a percentage type of thing with those guys, because then they can do a quick calculation as they're going through the service call checklist, going through the inspection checklist, and potentially offering those options. They can see, all right, not to sell stuff that people don't need, but they can see how their ticket total goes up and how their personal pay will go up, and it'd be uncapped. They can make as much as they're able to make. So that example you gave where, you budgeted for an hour, you scheduled in that guy's daily work an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes him 2. Well, he's only going to be able to get to 3 jobs that day instead of potentially 4. So his
Yeah.
pay will be directly impacted. And as Nicole said, if it's a pattern, well, one, we need to let him go. But if he's on more of that merit-based or piece rate pay as well, it's going to be less sustainable for him, right? It's going to be kind of a self-policing property there, right? He's going to not be able to survive as well. Or if he's barely trickling along, it's not costing you the same amount to pay him as it is the guy that is knocking him out, in half
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, and see a lot of the, because we work in North Florida, so we cover a lot of ground. Obviously, like there's different cities we're in each and every day. So I will be in Gainesville, and some days we're in Jackson. Yeah, I mean just to give y'all a reference, there I live in between both of them, so they're 40 minutes from my house each way. So they're bigger cities. So I'm kind of in the middle ground. So I want to service kind of both areas if I can. Just say, obviously, I'm not going to be like, hey, go to Gainesville and go to Jacksonville. I mean, that's an hour and a half. But say he's over there in Gainesville, it's a college town. There's always traffic. Traffic gets backed up so bad over there sometimes, you know what I mean? It like with performance pay, say he gets stuck in traffic for, an hour and a half, throughout the whole entire day, not in just one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like he's not almost not getting incentivized for knocking out the work on a performance base. Say he could have did the 3 or 4 jobs and he did the 3, but he kind of got screwed over because he sat in traffic for that long. Because every address you go to, it's like, hey, this is 30 minutes away, or just because traffic and everything, it'll be 5-10 miles down the road and it'll be over 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in that you look at people that are on salary, you take the good with the bad. You'll have a day where you smoke it and you make a killing, you're off at 2. And then you have the day like you just mentioned, where yesterday we had a wreck leaving out of our area, multi-fatality. Interstate was shut down from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Well, my guy got in it at 1 and was stuck in it for an hour.
Yeah.
And that what you just said came into my mind, because I'm always thinking of trying to figure out a way to integrate the performance pay. So the company I cut my service teeth at, local to Birmingham, they do an interesting pay scale, which is very well hourly, with 3.5% of gross sales over 15,000. So once you hit 15,000, you get into that 3.5%, and it is gross. So every month you get pretty much an extra $1,000, $1,500 paycheck with them. And that's probably the manner that I will go unless I see something better, because in that you give the guys comfort that they're getting hourly.
Yeah.
They're getting that consistent pay while they're there. If they get stuck in traffic, they're getting paid for getting stuck in traffic, because they're in your truck and it's not their fault that they're stuck in traffic. And then they get the incentive pay of, okay, you sold this much, you get this little bite out of it every month.
Okay. Yeah, I see a bunch of AC companies around my area doing that, and I got a bunch of buddies that are in it, and that's basically kind of the same aspect that they do. I've been thinking about it. I just been trying to find the best way to do it, because obviously I want guys to not drag their feet, which I'm not saying they're doing it. I got good guys, but when I continue to grow, I want to be able to incentivize guys that work harder for me, and in a way, I mean, because there's always, every company I've ever been at, there's always that employee that obviously I don't want them, but sometimes you don't see the side of them until it's, you know, what I mean, a little bit later down the road. They're dragging their feet to make more money for themselves instead of, you know, what I mean, basically doing what's best for the customer. Obviously, we're here to make money, but I also don't want to be known as the guy that screws people over and sends guys that just drag their feet or sit in the truck and talk on their phone or whatever. I mean, because that's just going to translate to bad reviews and a worse reputation. So I was just trying to figure out a way to incentivize the guys where they go in there, knock it out quick, and do it the right way, and they get rewarded that way.
Hey Bryce, is there any way you guys can put all the plumbers together that are throughout the different states? That way they can talk. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I'm in California, guys, and I'm a general contractor out here, right? So I do more remodeling. I came from the handyman side, right? So I was doing a lot of small stuff. But the reason I say that is because I know a lot of plumbers where the technicians are making around $100,000 a year, right? And I know those numbers sound crazy, right? But that's what California is, you know. So, and a lot of the companies are paying commissions and are paying, you know. I've heard everything that these guys are talking about. I've heard it all out here, but it's just crazy out here in California. Even when it comes down to subs, you know, for me to get pricing, you know, everything is astronomical, you know, out here in California, you know. But a lot of times it's good to learn from the guys in different states, just so you guys have an idea, you know, where they're at, you know, and how, you know, to get a little bit, you know, different acquainted, because you guys are correct. Everybody moves for a freaking dollar, you know, all of a sudden, you know. But out here, because they're getting compensated well, right? The bigger companies, actually not even all the bigger companies, because one of my neighbors, you know, even their guys are getting paid good, and the guy's not even a 2-year journeyman, the way Daylon was talking about, right? He's new to the field, but he's getting paid handsomely. But they're out there selling their, you know, they're selling everything, you know. And one of the things that I was looking at is just making sure that they're not selling what they shouldn't be selling, you know, because a lot of times, you know, that's another thing. And even, you know, with me with our repairs, I had the backward problem where my guys weren't selling, you know, and I've been noticing that more and more since I'm back in the field, you know. But and again, I couldn't compensate the way those guys are compensating, you know, because I wasn't even making that. But I've been hearing everything, seeing everything. I got a good friend of mine that's in the HVAC company, and he's having a hard time with retention too. But it's also because the company's making the money, not their employees. So I'm hearing, you know, both sides of the field, and I'm seeing it. And again, he's in a different part. He's up in Riverside County, while I'm in the San Diego County. But everybody's numbers are different, and it's just kind of crazy, you know, listening to where we're all at and stuff. My drywaller that just left me, I was paying him $32 an hour. Now he's making $48 an hour, you know. And I mean, I couldn't even touch it if I wanted to, you know. But yeah, that's just that's the reality out here in California.
I'm on a plumber's business owners page, and this is brought up pretty often. People say, "What should I charge for this? What's your market?" California, New York, Oregon, the Portland, Oregon area is bananas. Big parts of Texas. Talked to Mitch Schmedley with Schmedley Plumbing out of KC, Missouri. Sorry. He just sold out to private equity. But talking to all these other business owners that have done things, it's all relative to your area. The cost of living is so different in areas. So you kind of look at it as relation to what does it cost to live there? Because I couldn't charge what I've talked to guys. There's a guy that makes videos. I can't think, Hydro Pro, I think his name is, out of California. He's LA area, and what they're charging would run us out of town. We wouldn't, that would get on the state attorney or attorney general would be coming to me.
Yeah.
What that is.
So to this end, this is why we're a big proponent. Anytime we have something that is like a pricing model or a pricing structure, anything like that, we're big on talking about common size analysis with P&Ls. We're big on talking about percentages with pricing because it should proportionately work in a similar way, right? Even if you're paying guys $42 an hour over in California, and that's, low end of the market. Whereas Louisiana, you can pay guys $20 an hour, and that's right on the sweet spot. Proportionally, cost plus pricing is the way you need to validate whatever price you're giving out. What does it cost you to do the job based on your company's numbers, your P&L, and adding in your margins on top of it? It doesn't necessarily matter what's happening down the road. In one sense, it does, because you got to be competitive sort of in the market. You can do competitive based pricing where you go based on what you hear other people pricing it the same kind of job or service for, and then undercutting or overpricing based on what your goals are. But at the end of the day, no matter what, you need to know your percentages to be able to price with those in mind. And whatever it costs you to do the job, and however you can do that more efficiently and reduce your cost to make it a more enticing price is great. But like you said earlier, Dalen, it's about removing the services or things that you do rather than just arbitrarily moving your price. When you know your percentages, your margins, those are what they are until they change on your P&L. And then we can accurately reflect them. But those are what they are. And we don't arbitrarily throw those around because that eliminates customer trust. They think your numbers, your pricing is arbitrary. So huge proponents of calculating, and that's where it's able to be broad truth or broad knowledge across the country, even though we're working with people all over the US. So.
And what you just said, I think the equation that you're referring to is kind of what I went into to find my initial hourly labor. And I fluffed it up to a point where I was like, okay, this is what it should cost me to run this business with 2 employees and me on payroll as well, and equated that then. And because a lot of people, and I know guys that own businesses in all aspects that go off of what the local standard is. But I found out talking to a guy much smarter than me in business, not necessarily plumbing, but he said the big shop downtown that has 30 trucks, they can actually charge less than you per hour. And that is because they are going quantity. They have so many calls per day. They're top of the Google every day. They're spending all this money for that. And their guys are doing 6 calls a day times 30 trucks. They're able to come down. You have to charge a little bit more because you're a small shop trying to attain the same thing. The way he put it was much more poetic than me, but that what's good for the big shop may not be good for the small shop. You as a small shop, and with that, they're getting value that they don't get when they call Roto-Rooter and they get a call center that dispatches them to an apprentice, and you get an apprentice that comes out, then a salesman, and then all these steps. You get a plumber when you call a mom and pop shop, whether it be like Rapid Repair. They get to deal with you. They get to deal with the guy that knows the business, and people will pay more for that to talk to the guy, him to come out and tell them their problem, rather than talking to a kid and then 2 other guys that are trying to sell them snake oil. Talk to the guy that knows and can explain to them in layman's terms exactly what's going on. People will pay more for that.
Yeah, I had a customer get excited yesterday when I showed up. Like, holy smokes, we have the head honcho here today. And the wife comes out and big old smiles and stuff. And I was like, hey, how you guys doing? But you're right. Sometimes we do. You're right. Right. I've been noticing a lot of things differently, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. They love, and I know it's a disconnect that I have to do, but people love calling and talking to Dalen, because in all the referrals on the reviews, everything, they're praising me in the first year because it was just me in a truck. It looked different because we had to set up a nice wrap truck. It looked like we were bigger than we were. They thought that I was a tech. I never introduced myself at that point as the business owner. I never told people, hey, this is mine. I'm just a technician. I don't want to be known as that first year and have that added pressure. So I got all these, hey, Dalen is awesome, this and that. And now people call and say, hey, this is Dalen with Bespoke Plumbing. They're happy with that. And that's something that's worrisome as far as the disconnect. Once I do get an office manager, they're going to be talking to them, but I know it's a necessary process in growth. But right now it's a good little sales tactic alone as they call and talk to me.
Nice. Nice. Good input there. Good conversations. I wouldn't worry about that too much, Dalen. You're right in saying that that's a necessary step eventually, but I wouldn't worry about losing that aspect in the future because business will carry on. People will still want you to do it based on the reviews of the company as a whole.
And that's
So-
something I've spoke with other people about, and they're like, you've built the reputation thus far. When they call, they know that they're dealing with Dalen's business. They may not be dealing directly with him, and anybody with any like any idea of how business works knows that through growth, I have other things that I got to do that aren't necessarily picking up the phone and listening to you describing your plumbing issue.
That's right. That's right. Great feedback. Good questions so far. What other questions do we have this morning? Maybe have time for another pivoted topic here, or if anybody has anything they wanted to contribute to that last conversation or clarify.
Yeah, really love that everything is being shared. I think something really important to think about, because Dalen, what you just did is you just described a really strong, unique value proposition. And you did it with conviction, right? And those are the things that causes people to make buying decisions, right? You have a very good argument of why you are clearly better than the big guy in town, right? That was great. I think something though that a lot of business owners miss, and I'm not necessarily even saying that you're missing this, right? I'm just using it as an opportunity to speak on, is that if your brand is not centered and branded around those things, and the only time that people are finding that out is when they call you on the phone and you're able to explain that to them, then it could be missing opportunities. This kind of goes back to the kind of purple cow principle, something that we're really big on, which is, hey, that's great, but are those concepts, right? Are these points branded consistently throughout any time anyone can see the brand of Bespoke Plumbing or Rapid Repair or anything like that? You know, are they going to your website and are they seeing that language that you just shared, right, in some form on your website? Are they seeing that on your trucks? Does everybody know that when they call Bespoke, or when Bespoke's the guys in town, even before they call, that they're going to get, you know, a real plumber out to their house, that they're going to talk to someone local, that they're going to talk to Dalen's company, right? And so I think something people miss is, and it really frustrates us here, because our business typically attracts higher quality professionals, like people who are really, really good at their craft. And then it's frustrating because it's like, you know, you're better. And it's not an egotistical statement. It's just like, I provide people a better service and experience than the other people here are able to provide. And that's why I wanted to start a business. And that's why I'm passionate about. But if that isn't clear in your brand, specifically what I'm talking about is on your website, on your Facebook page, on your Google business listing, on your social media, on your trucks, wherever your brand can be seen, if these things aren't clear, then it's a missed opportunity, right? People just aren't going to know. So it's just an opportunity to say, hey, make sure that passion that is awesome is driven not just from one-on-one conversations, but it's actually incorporated in the way that you brand and market your company too.
So we've done no branding other than what I knew how to do as far as make a truck classy and clean with the way it's laid out. My website's reciprocal of that. I built it with no knowledge. I had a friend help me, but as far as the layout, but that is something that I agree with, and I haven't necessarily thought about, as people know, even away from my Google reviews say,
Yeah, 128 5-star reviews. I mean, that's no matter if your vehicle is wrapped or not, that's going to show that you are a credible company. You're a premium company. You should charge a premium service. You know, like that puts you far above a lot of companies.
and a lot of those say the professionalism,
Yeah.
explanation, the putting it in a manner that they could understand, because you have a lot of salesy companies that come in and and talk over people's head where they can understand. So we're noticed in that aspect as well. But I agree with Robert in the fact that during, I guess I'll note this, that during the website rebuild, to figure out a way to integrate that into it where they know, hey, we're family owned, family operated, we do things different, and figure out a way to put that in not a in your face deal, but where they read it and they're like, I want to call these people because I'm talking to professionals. I'm not, when they come out, I'm not getting a salesman first that sells the job and then you get it, which isn't a bad deal. I see guys do very well with that and they're respected. Just not my business model. You get a guy that comes and sells you the product and he does it while he's there in an honest manner that you understand why you're getting that service.
Yeah. And say what you just said just now. Say that, don't say professionalism, right? Because, and this is something that if you've gone through like the one sheet process with us, that your coach will have inevitably talked to you about, right? Like, do you know any companies that don't want to be professional? Like maybe they aren't professional the way they treat people, but it's like, that's something that just everyone says, you know what I mean? And it's kind of meaningless. What does a professional plumbing company even mean, right? You know what it means. You just explained it, right? So be sure not to go for the terms that everyone's using, but to actually find that unique language that accurately describes the way you do service differently.
And that's the name of my business, Bespoke. Tailored to your needs. And that's why I went at it in that manner, because the majority don't know what that word means. The majority don't know what that word means. So they ask, and then I'm able to explain to them, hey, this is why. That's long story short. A friend of mine's married to an Australian. That's where I got the word from, because they use it as far as custom and tailored, used it from there. And I'm able to explain that to them. And the majority are like, wow, that's really cool. So doing that, but being able to brand it in a manner for a digital presence is a whole nother thing that you just brought to my attention that we need to work on.
Yeah, dude, no one knows.
No,
they already know you.
That's why
they already know you. Yeah. So that's why you're here, man. And that wasn't even so much something, because I've seen your website, right? But I haven't gone deeply into your branding. And I wasn't even saying that so much for you. I'm really glad it's resonating as much as I was using that as an opportunity to share with everybody. This is a big thing that contractors overlook. It's like, we just get a website up and, I do this service and I do it better than other people, but no one knows that they literally are just comparing you to every other person. We have to do things that stand out. That's one of the things I like about the one sheet. The one sheet isn't just a comparison chart that compares you to your competitors. It's a creative way that no one is doing. It's a creative way for people to know and remember why you do business differently. And there's also a sales tool for your techs or yourself to use it at the point of sale to walk customers through that. The reason that I love it is because no one is providing an 8.5 by 11 inch, two-sided color document, right, to their customers that is just highlighting the uniqueness in they do business and making an argument of why they're better than the people out there, right? And when we say better than people out there, people can get stuck on, oh man, I don't want to put my competitors down, which I don't know. I don't really get that idea. But a lot of people like just don't want to ruffle feathers or whatever. Yeah, like I understand that, but it's not like even we're trying to put competitors down. We're just trying to give a report of what is normal versus how we do business, right? So that we can highlight our uniqueness and the benefits of what we bring to the table. And that's the last thing I say is make sure your benefits oriented. Alex, do you remember the difference between features and benefits?
Yes, I do.
Explain it.
Yeah, exactly. So the benefit is something that is going to benefit the client. It's kind of like an iPhone versus like an Android, right? Whenever you have an iPhone, you're selling a lifestyle. And so that's like a benefit to the client whenever it's like all your music is going to be on one device, right? Versus how there was a commercial that Robert and I were watching in his office, and it was kind of, you had iPhone where everything was all in one, which is a benefit to the person, right? And then the guy had other, I think it was like an MP3, and you couldn't even make a phone call on it or something. And it was just like a feature of that, So a feature is something that doesn't benefit the client, and a benefit is something that benefits the client.
Yeah. So like the example is like when the iPod, right, was being sold, Apple would lead with the selling point, or I should say this, most MP3 player companies, this is back in like the 2000s when they were selling MP3 players, right? They would say, hey, our MP3 player has 32 gigabytes. Feature. iPod, they would say 10,000 songs in your pocket. Benefit. Right? Another even simpler example. Let's say you're selling a red bike, right? Feature. This bike is red. Right? The bike is red. That's a feature of the bike. Benefit. Stand out among the peers, stand out among your peers, and get noticed with this bright red, beautiful bike, right? We're tapping into getting noticed, getting attention, right? Whereas the feature is just talking about the bike. So just be sure that when you're talking about the stuff, right, it's in a benefits-oriented way. Like Alex said, how is this going to end up benefiting me as a customer, right? Versus just saying something that's effective about our company. Hi, Bertram.
I know we have enough struggles of our own right now, but having
Not-
come out of the housing industry and you always dealt with people comparing you side to side with somebody who had a model home next to you. And people would, even features and benefits, but they would get quality and upgrade confused. And people would tell us that they loved another builder's home because of the quality. And I would ask them, directly, what do you consider to be quality? And they're like, well, they have 2 50-gallon water heaters. And I said, well, that is pretty cool, but that would be, what would you call an upgrade? A great 50-gallon water heater is quality. 2 of them is an upgrade. And don't miss, like Dalen on yours, don't underestimate your verbiage of how people hear it we're also very small, family owned, tight-knit group. When you say just a tech, that's just language that we use kind of behind the scenes. But man, we're representatives, and like you literally got to pick how you were going to run your company, and you said, I'm not going to have 300 trucks rolling.
Yeah.
And when you make that decision, it's harder and easier all at the same time. And man, just don't ever underestimate what that means to somebody that, like, our plumber is a master plumber of 21 years. And Thomas is very softly spoken, but when Thomas hands him his card and it says Master Plumber, Texas, 21 years, and he never says anything, I'm Thomas with McCulloch Plumbing. And then they get into it and they'll look down at the card and go, nah, yes, he does act like an owner of the company. He does. He didn't have to introduce himself as that. He was very humble in his representation of the fact that this dude is crazy qualified to be standing here in front of me. And I think that makes him want to latch onto you more versus, and don't get me wrong, I know there are people who have lots and lots of trucks, but that wouldn't be who I would call. I'd like to know who's walking in my house. I'd like to know who I'm talking to. And so again, that's a difference of quality. They could still be a quality company, but I think it's kind of an upgrade if I get to talk to you. For sure. That's more valuable to me.
And that's how we've been since day one. And that's something I always want to keep, because yes, I started this whole thing to work myself out of a work truck, but I will still be in my work truck going to look at jobs and get more work. I'll take I can't remember how it's put, but the things that are less hourly rate than me, I'll delegate those tasks and I'll go look at jobs and still be the face of the company. And that's something that I think I may be wrong. And guys, Robert, correct me if I am wrong. I always want to be somewhat of the face of the company, not in a point where when private equity looks at me in 10 years that they're like, that's a downfall because he is just the absolute face of the company, but still be present in a manner where people respect it. And and go at it in a manner where you add the quality of, you get to talk to, you got a 21-year, that's 16-year master plumber gas fitter, you get this guy. And then you get the journeyman plumber, 3 years, but equivalent, and then a 6-year. You're not getting a specialized guy that can only drain clean. You're not getting a drain tech. You're getting a plumber every time you call us.
Yes, and real quick, the only difference between whether or not a private equity company would have that reaction that you mentioned, that's like, oh man, this is too dependent upon Dalen, is if the business was dependent on you, right? So if removing you from the business would cause the business to no longer function, that's the only thing that they would be worried about. And chances are, like, if you're with us, we're not going to build a business that way. You know, we build the opposite of that. But a private equity company would love a business that's branded around someone's reputation and their name. You know what I mean? Still had a business that was a well-ran oiled machine that was process and systems and software driven, right? They're all over that. In fact, in the Bertram's neck of the woods down in Leander, Texas, there was a plumbing company I worked with for a long time called Rogers Plumbing. It was named after Roger, the plumber. But he was a guy who we helped build a repeatable business, right? Repeatable systems. He was a high integrity dude, right? And that integrity filtered to the rest of his team. And that was extremely valuable to the company that bought him, right? And they paid a premium for it because it had both, right? It was a brand that had his values really solidified into the people, into the brand, right? They demonstrate those values, but it was also a company that wasn't completely dependent upon him to run, right? So yeah, dude, you're going to get there, man. You're going to get there. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. Really enjoyed the discussion, everybody. Great contribution. Really appreciate everyone that contributes and participates in these group calls. If this is your first time here, we like to end with a little bit of think of it like a football huddle, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys unmute your mics. So I need everyone to unmute your mics, unmute your mics, unmute your mics. And then I'm going to count number 3, 3, 2, 1. After I say 1, we're all going to say the word grow. On 3, right? 2, 1.
Grow.